Lovely. Just wait a couple more minutes for a few people to join and then we can get going. Well, it's 10:03 and I don't think people are here to hear from me, so why don't I start and then we can sort of get moving. I'm sure I think we've got a few more people joining us. So welcome everybody. My name is Charlotte. I am the Director of Programmes for the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, CWEIC. A huge good morning, good evening, wherever you are across the Commonwealth, and a sort of special welcome to our strategic partners. We are delighted to be working in collaboration with Coventry University on this webinar, and of course the bespoke MBA programme in global trade and investment, which we will be learning more about later. We're very excited to be today to be joined by Professor Joan Lockyer, who is the Professor of Entrepreneurship and Head of School of Strategy and Leadership at Coventry University. She'll be leading us in this topic, transforming lives, unlocking the economic potential of women entrepreneurs in the global south. Before we start, a quick note on the masterclass. Inspired by International Women's Day, we will delve into the social and systemic factors that inhibit women's economic progression. Despite their substantial contributions, women entrepreneurs continue to face challenges that impact their ability to realise their full potential. Professor Lockyer will shed light on these obstacles and offer strategies for overcoming them. I'll shortly hand over to the MBA team to say a few words about the masterclass before it begins. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a little about CWEIC and the Commonwealth for those who've not come across us before. CWEIC is a membership organisation with the mandate from the Commonwealth Heads of Government to promote trade and investment across the 56 nations. Our job is to bring the economic opportunity of the Commonwealth to the world's doorstep and promote the Commonwealth as a place to do business. With shared legal systems, administrative systems, and common language, it is on average around 21% cheaper to do business within the Commonwealth, and we call this the Commonwealth Advantage. Our work is underpinned by an extremely supportive partner base of around 140 strategic partners from across the Commonwealth, from governments both regional and national, chambers of commerce, investment promotion agencies, to multilateral organisations and global businesses. We have a hub network of 14 offices spread across the Commonwealth, providing in-country expertise and access to market for businesses looking to expand and operate. And what makes the Commonwealth a unique place to do business? Well, it has a combined population of around 2.5 billion, is home to 40% of the global workforce and over half of the top 20 emerging cities. CWEIC recognises the challenges that face many citizens of the Commonwealth, including the recent economic and geopolitical challenges and the ongoing threat of climate change. To address these challenges, the significance of education cannot be understated. Further education and professional qualifications play a vital role in supporting workers to reach their full potential and provides employers with a highly skilled and versatile workforce. The key to solving global problems is educating and nurturing ambitious leaders who can think critically and strategically to solve complex business issues. We're excited to see what the MBA's programmes cohort will achieve in the future. We hope you enjoy this masterclass. Do get involved by asking questions, and I will now hand over to Dr. Ina Maycock and Dr. Aeneas Pikas to say a few words and to introduce Professor Lockyer. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to turn up for this masterclass session. We want to first of all welcome our guest speaker, Professor Joan Lockyer, our colleagues from the Commonwealth and Coventry University, also our participants who came in to listen to this masterclass session. We want to welcome you to the second Coventry University MBA Masterclass webinar session in partnership with CWEIC. I'll quickly introduce Professor Lockyer. Professor Lockyer is a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy and a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. She's worked in higher education for over 20 years. Prior to this, she's worked within industry in product development, testing, and certification for over 10 years, and she's been in consulting for 12 years. She's led a number of European and international projects that aim to build entrepreneurship capacity in higher education and to foster closer collaboration between higher education and industry in a wide range of cultural contexts. Her research interest focuses on the transformative effect of entrepreneurship through education, but specifically on the interplay between policy, innovation, and leadership. The interface of gender and entrepreneurship is also a keen interest for her. She's particularly interested in minority and disadvantaged groups. She has successfully led on and contributed to a number of European projects with a total value of over 5 million euros. A project with the British Council in occupied Palestine territories, including developing entrepreneurial skills in Palestine graduates in Ghana on business incubation. She has also worked on projects in Oman, South Africa, China, Nigeria, Ghana, and Malaysia, principally on knowledge transfer, curriculum design, and staff capacity building. This morning, we would like to welcome Professor Joan Lockyer. Professor Lockyer, over to you.
Good morning. I felt, when you say all that, I feel very old. Some of them I did at the same time. They weren't all sort of running concurrently one after the other, but I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk to colleagues and to visiting people interested in the Commonwealth and interested in knowing more about the Commonwealth MBA. When I was thinking about what to talk to you about, it was really inspired, I guess, by some of the things we were doing around International Women's Day last week. And I think originally we had planned to run this webinar on International Women's Day and we needed to change it. So I've stuck with the theme because it really is a very significant part of what the Commonwealth, I would think, would be interested in understanding more about how to transform the lives of people within the communities that it serves and the members' areas, but particularly focusing on women entrepreneurs. So this is not intended to be a taught session as such. I'm not here to lecture and preach to you, really just to try and provoke some thinking in a way that we would if we were in the classroom. So please feel free to ask questions through the chat or directly as I go through this. I'm really happy to do that. The session is designed to last about 20 minutes. And just as I said, to provoke your interest in some of the issues around how women in particular can contribute to economic prosperity, but how they face a number of challenges, how we face a number of challenges. And I've experienced this in many places around the world, and in many respects, it's getting worse and not necessarily better. So we've got a real job of work to do. So the title is Transforming Lives, Unlocking the Economic Potential of Women Entrepreneurs. And Anais is my wingman, so thank you. Next slide. So the session is broken down into these sort of key areas. And as I say, it will last about 20 minutes. So when I talk to my students and we talk about transformation, I always say transforming from what to what, because transformation is a very easy word to bandy about, isn't it? We're going to transform the world. We're going to transform the lives of people. We're going to make these huge differences. Sometimes transformation is very incremental, very minor. Little things can make a huge difference. So we need to understand when we talk about transformation, what exactly we're thinking of and how transformation might manifest differently in different places. I want to talk to you about entrepreneurship because it's a very, despite the fact that we probably use the word every day in many, many contexts, it's grossly misunderstood as a concept. So let's unpack it a little bit and get some understanding of what we really think it means and what we think entrepreneurs are like and what type of thing entrepreneurs might do. Because one of the things that we've been working on as a research group with a number of my colleagues from a range of universities is looking at decolonising entrepreneurship across the global marketplace. And in order to do that, we have to understand how entrepreneurship manifests differently in different places. and is subject to different cultural constraints and historical constraints. And the language that we use around entrepreneurship is really, really critical in engaging or disengaging people from the journey. We'll have a little look at why it matters. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to women and minoritized groups specifically? Women are a minority group within the entrepreneurship space, but they're not necessarily the smallest group. So we need to stop thinking about minority as in smaller than, and minoritized as in they may be the major population, but not the most advantaged. So changing the language a little bit, we look at why it matters. And then lastly, why it matters to the Commonwealth. I'm saying this bit here, transforming lives, because I think those of you who are on the call will know a lot about why it's important to make sure that everyone within a population is able to participate effectively and equally to some degree in contributing to economic well-being and growth. That's good for economies and that's good for people. What we have to do is make sure that in any context, we try our very best to use all of the resources available to us and all the talent that's available to us in order to make sure that we give everyone a chance to contribute to economic well-being, grow economies, and prosper themselves as a consequence of it. Because with that prosperity, and I'm not talking about making everyone super rich entrepreneurs with mega millions, but those small changes, excuse me, in people's lives that allow them to do the things that they would like to do for their families. That could be making sure that the children get an education as opposed to not getting an education. That small matter in and of itself makes a huge difference to the lives of young people. As Charlotte's already said, education is key to everything. Now, if we look at what happens in terms of how we empower economically people in the global north, as opposed to economic empowerment in the global south, there's huge disparities. There are disparities within the north, across the north, of course, and there are disparities across the south and between the south. But the difference between the global north and the global south is stark. And despite the economic wealth and potential that the global south has, it still has a long way to go in order to reap the benefits of the capability and the resources and the talent that sits within the global south to make a massive difference. It's disproportionately affected by all of the things that lots of people face, but in a higher magnitude. So can you just go back one slide? Sorry, Anais. So I've put a link on there to a little video, which I think you might find really interesting. It's looking at how, from a global south perspective, if you empower young women by giving them education and resources, it makes a huge difference. And that's particularly looking at the environmental impact of education for young women. So I can't do it now, I can't use it now, but I would urge you to have a look at that. And when we're thinking about all of the things that I'm going to talk about next, we need to think about, yes, life is unfair and there are massive differences. What can we do in the context in which we are to make a difference within the regions in which we work? And a huge number of Commonwealth members are from that global south region. So it makes a really big difference. Little things there will make a big difference. Sorry, the next one. So is entrepreneurship the answer to empowerment? We always think entrepreneurship will generate wealth for everyone. And there's a growing body of belief, really, that entrepreneurship is a very powerful way of thinking and behaving and generating economic wealth or well-being, better well-being. But there's lots of challenges faced by women that aren't faced by other people, lots of challenges faced by minoritized groups that aren't faced by certain other groups. But for every one of the positives, these things can be a negative. And I've just listed some of the things. And, you know, I took some of this from your research when you were looking at Africa, well, Nigeria in particular, and the challenges faced by women. But these are challenges faced by people of all persuasions, women and men, minorities and non-minority groups, when they have to think about entrepreneurship. It's just they're faced more so by women. Women have far lower self-efficacy in many instances than men. They've got lower self-belief. So getting them to make that first step towards doing something that will economically empower them, whether that's entrepreneurship or other forms of activity, they have to be persuaded that that's for them, that's something they can do. And education has a real role to play in that. We know gender discrimination exists within the workplace, and it also exists within support mechanisms for women who want to start businesses. And that's very much a mixed picture depending on where you are in the world. Women still carry the burden of responsibility for managing families, children, looking after others within the social caring role, within the home. Access to resources is difficult. Women face massive difficulties in accessing funding, which materially impacts on the way and the types of businesses that they start. We know about, we said sub-Saharan Africa and the global south. Infrastructure is often very difficult. People can't get from A to B, move products from A to B. So it makes it very difficult to trade effectively if the infrastructure is somewhat limited. Lack of training, lacking business resources. Sometimes the political, social, economic environment is not munificent enough, not well-being enough for people to start businesses. Training is something we've talked about for many years that will help women start businesses. Personality differences, that propensity or lack of propensity to take risk, cultural learnings, and last but not least, earning potential. And the reason I'm saying, is entrepreneurship always the answer for women? It's not, and increasingly we're saying, given all of the constraints, sometimes what happens is it becomes a necessity to be an entrepreneur, not a choice. And the money that women can make from entrepreneurship is often really tiny and not as much as they would earn if they were in a job. So if they had a choice about being employed versus being entrepreneurial, many would opt to be employed because it's safer, it's less risky, and they probably will earn more in the first instance, certainly around some of the businesses that many women start around and in the global south. So if you move me on to the next one. And press again because we've got all the names. So entrepreneurs come in many shapes and sizes. It's not the single one size fits all. There are a number of entrepreneurial archetypes, and these are my little bulb heads. Just give you a flavour of the types of entrepreneurs that there are, and each of those groupings has a categorization of its own. And so how we would, as educators or as political leaders or community support people, deal with each of those groups varies. Now, if we don't know how many of each of these we have in our community, we don't know where to put our resources. We might want to develop more tech entrepreneurs. So how do we do that? We might want to develop more social entrepreneurs. How do we do that? Because they have different needs and different expectations and different mindsets. So there really is no one size fits all approach to any of these. We've had a very troublesome Western new typology added we've been looking at, which is child entrepreneurs, where families are using their children resources, and putting them on TikTok and YouTube and, getting them to generate vast amounts of revenue. And they then become the new entrepreneurs within many families. And that's a growing phenomenon that's proving a little bit troublesome, I think. But regardless of which entrepreneurial archetype you might be, down the side, you can see we have our productive, our unproductive, and necessity-based entrepreneurs. In any context, in any economy, what you really want is productive entrepreneurs, those who make a real difference to the economy and to communities. It doesn't have to be vast amounts of wealth. It can be in all sorts of socially beneficial ways. But we also have unproductive entrepreneurs. They are the ones who don't make a positive contribution. They sap finance and revenue and resources and exploit people in all sorts of ways that are, one might say, very entrepreneurial, but it's not necessarily good for society. And then for sub-Saharan Africa, the vast majority of our entrepreneurs are necessity entrepreneurs. They do it because they have no choice. It's the only form of work they can create for themselves. And so our aim would be to move our necessity entrepreneurs, who are very productive in their own right on the whole, into one of those other archetypes whereby they choose to be an entrepreneur rather than be left to be entrepreneurial, doing, roadside cooking, providing food, all sorts of the things that we see women in many, many different parts of the world doing to eke a living, to get enough money for the food that they need for that day. So next slide, please. Ecosystems are really key, and every one of the countries within the Commonwealth, well, will have some commonalities around the ecosystem, but also differences. And so organisations like the Commonwealth can really be supportive in understanding what's going on within its ecosystem and provide the right types of support to ensure that the positive parts of an ecosystem develop and nurture entrepreneurs in the way that you would want them to. So when you're looking at the place, what you want to know is how supportive is the culture in this place to encourage women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship generally? What are the attributes, if you like, the social attributes, the network, how we think about entrepreneurs? Do we praise them? Do we revile them? Do we support them? Do we build them into our education systems? Do we mentor them? How do we do all of those things? Do we give them the finance that they need to start their businesses? That will result in the material attributes, which are the concrete things that we can all do as institutions like universities, governments, business networks, support services, to make sure that the whole ecosystem works effectively. It then becomes mutually supportive. So you have to understand the ecosystem of a place in order to understand how best to support the types of entrepreneurs you want to generate and nurture in any given place. So let's push aside this idea that entrepreneurs are just people who are self-employed, because they're not. They're multiple facets of things, and they have different dispositions and different ways of thinking and working with the resources that they have available. We over here in the West and in the northern, in the global north, we have lots of entrepreneurs, people who we want to encourage to help and support businesses to grow whilst working in those organisations, but using all the capacities and capabilities that entrepreneurs have. Lots of hybrid workers. I often say to people, wherever I'm in the world, what do you do? And they say, oh, I don't do entrepreneurship. It's not for me. Oh, by the way, I drive a taxi in the evening. I have a little food business. I work for this organisation, but I'm a tour guide. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. They do all sorts of things, and they're in that hybrid space. Migrant groups are an increasingly, migrant groups, so women, migrants and older entrepreneurs are increasingly filling the new startup space in lots of countries around the world, including the UK and Europe. What we do know is where markets are unregulated, the shadow economy has a capacity to grow. So controlling the shadow economy is really critical in order to allow the other types of entrepreneurship to grow. If the shadow economy becomes bigger, then other forms of unregulated entrepreneurship or regulated entrepreneurship diminish, whilst the shadow economy fills that void. And increasingly, certainly with young people, we're seeing much more values-oriented entrepreneurship starting. They're really interested in making a difference, not just in making vast amounts of money. The get-rich-quick mindset is definitely not something we see or I experience when I'm talking to young entrepreneurs in lots of different parts of the world. So let's be more nuanced in our understanding of entrepreneurship and how it fits. And when we're creating these environments or the ecosystems, when we're understanding what happens, it's that economic interplay of all these factors that will really change the way in which entrepreneurship is supported. So why does it matter? Back to women, it matters because the World Economic Forum are telling us currently that the gender pay gap has moved slightly in recent years, but through COVID, it moved back significantly. Lots of women-owned and women-started businesses failed because women were not digitally literate enough to pivot them into a different form of working. So in some instances, and we've got some evidence of this from different parts of the world, the men in their lives who were more digitally literate took over their businesses and the women's disappeared into the background. But the gender pay gap has increased. And at the current rate of diminishing, it's another 131 years. It's going down by 0.2% a year, something like that. Iceland is top of the league at the moment, but even in the West and the global North, that gap is still far wider than it should be. So 131 years, ladies, we've got to think about that one. Education contributes to economic well-being and inclusivity. We have to think about how we educate. It's not always about being in the classroom. It's about being in communities, peer-to-peer learning. Lots of entrepreneurs learn from each other very, very effectively. And good practice and mentoring and community support is critical to a lot of that. Poverty, 30% of the world's population, women and girls, are in, 8% of the world's population is still living in abject poverty and will be for the foreseeable future. There's nothing more certain than education is a mechanism for helping people to alleviate poverty, because they can really make a difference in their lives. And sub-Saharan Africa is by far and away the worst in terms of poverty for young women and girls. Unpaid work is not counted within our economic factoring. So women are still doing 4 times more unpaid work than men, and probably in many instances much more. So for these reasons and many more, we have to make an impact. We have to start to address, to create economic well-being for women, because women will make a real difference to the lives of those people who they influence. And lastly, how does it impact on the Commonwealth? Well, I've already said you've got 56 countries, 2.4 billion people, 60% are under 30. There is your resource to do magnificent and wonderful things with the right education to support economic empowerment and growth, whether it's young women or men or young men. Far too many graduates in the global south are unemployed. I've lost track of the figures in Ghana, in Nigeria, in South Africa even. The levels of graduate unemployment are really, really very high. And many countries around the world, I can share it with colleagues if they want to, are embedding entrepreneurship within the academic programs at secondary school and in higher education as well, to make sure that people have the skills and the attributes they need to make a difference. So that includes Malaysia, China, South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, countless others are making entrepreneurship part of the mainstream education offer to ensure that people are starting from the very earliest years to think differently. And the Commonwealth countries will be impacted more than most by these challenges. The CWEIC is, as it says on the website, the business network of the Commonwealth. It's there and can, one would hope, support lots of the initiatives that would help to encourage more entrepreneurial activity. And women do play a critical role. They're generating huge amounts of GDP. We could do more. They could all do more. Just need the right sort of help in the right place in order to support and encourage them into productive entrepreneurship. And that's me. I don't know whether I went over an ace. Did my clock tick over or? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan. That is a fantastic outline of what we can do. And as you say, the CWEIC would be delighted to help with these initiatives. We're always looking for opportunities to make a difference. I just want to offer the people watching at home to please do send along your questions. I think we've got one already. Yeah, I will put that down. So what can we do to reduce risks for women entrepreneurs?
That's a very difficult one, because women perceive risks differently. Women are slower to the journey to start to be entrepreneurial because they want more certainty about the outcome. And so the self-efficacy work that we do is intended to try and encourage women to ease the thoughts or the concerns that they have about going into an entrepreneurial opportunity. So it's about reassurance in many ways. It's about providing the right mechanisms in order to ensure that they've got enough knowledge in the beginning to make the right choices that they make, but then supporting them along the journey. All too often, the types of businesses that women start are of type that are not going to generate huge amounts of revenue. And so you need to get women who are, involved in maybe STEM subjects, who are going to do more of the innovative type entrepreneurial activities, move them away from the high demand, low revenue, very marginalized types of entrepreneurship that many women, particularly in the global south, get involved in. See, for them, it's not about risk, it's about necessity. Once people move from necessity and I have to do this because I need to put bread on the table this evening, and they move into entrepreneurship by choice, then that tends to come as a consequence of them having thought, deliberated, and acquired some skill. Men are more inclined to jump in at the deep end and say, give it a go, let's see how it works, fly or die. Women will think about it a lot longer, take more time, want to have the skills that they need in order to move it forward. So once they're going, there's a greater likelihood that it will succeed if they go that way and they're using all of the resources that are available to them. So, eliminate the risk. You can't eliminate the risk. You can manage the risks and help them to manage the risks by understanding what the risks are and helping them to think about the decision making that they're doing, and to take advice from whoever they can get advice from, men or women, to make sure that when they're making those choices that they're as informed as they can be about the impact of those things. Women are also very reluctant to take investment. Actually, lots of entrepreneurs are. So when they take that investment, that can really make a difference, because what comes then with that is the types of the wraparound support that will help them build very robust businesses.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that fantastic answer, and thank you to the attendee for putting that question. There aren't any more questions right at this moment, but feel free to continue to ask them as we move on to the next part of this webinar. And I will hand over to the Coventry team now to start their short presentation on the MBA.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you so much, Professor Joan Lockyer. Thank you for that presentation. Very insightful. I'm just going to share my screen and then introduce our MBA Associate Course Director. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to our MBA Taster class for our second module. Before I start, I would like to introduce the Associate Course Director for the MBA in Global Trade and Investment for Commonwealth members only and their networks, Aeneas Gikas.
Thank you very much, Enel. Thank you very much and welcome. So allow me together to explore 3 compelling reasons to consider applying for the Coventry University MBA in Global Trade and Investment. So reason number 1 is the holistic preparation for dynamic global business environment. So by offering modules like global trade and investment, financial instruments in the global business environment, strategy and decision-making, this MBA program equips learners with the agility and flexibility needed to navigate the complexities of today's global business landscape. Understanding geopolitical dynamics, sustainable finance strategies, and strategic decision-making principles enables learners to adapt quickly to changing political, legal, and market conditions, empowering them to lead organizations effectively in an ever-evolving international arena. A second compelling reason is strategic global market engagement and cultural sensitivity. Professor Loycker mentioned about the importance of culture as well. With modules like global marketing and the MBA consultancy project, emphasizing adaptability in cultural marketing strategies and consulting engagements, this MBA program equips learners with the tools to engage effectively in global markets. By cultivating adaptability and cultural sensitivity, learners learn to tailor marketing strategies to consultancy approaches to diverse cultural contexts, enabling them to drive business success on a global scale. This interdisciplinary approach, therefore, ensures that graduates are not only proficient at navigating complex geopolitical and market dynamics, but also skilled at fostering inclusive and cultural meaningful business practices in diverse international settings. And a third key compelling reason for considering this program is empowerment for entrepreneurial ventures and organizational leadership. The modules, for example, on innovation and entrepreneurship, on leadership and change management, and the MBA consultancy project focus on fostering adaptability and agility in learners, essential qualities for entrepreneurial success and effective organizational leadership. Through these modules, learners develop the skills and mindset necessary to innovate and lead change initiatives, whether launching new ventures or driving transformation within established organizations. This holistic approach prepares, therefore, our learners to thrive as adaptive leaders capable to navigating diverse challenges and driving sustainable business growth.
Thank you so much, Aeneas. Thank you for that introduction, highlighting the benefits of joining the MBA in Global Trade and Investment for CWEIC members only. As I start with this, I'm only going to speak for 10 minutes to give you enough time to ask us questions and kind of allay your fears or your concerns around joining the program. So the Coventry University MBA is the flagship course for the business school. But we then have the MBA with a specialized pathway in global trade and investment in partnership with CWEIC. This is a bespoke course exclusive to CWEIC members, their strategic partners, as well as the wider trade and investment network in the Commonwealth. This course, it builds on the Coventry MBA by developing practice and creating sustainable long-term value. But we're embedding a social business field experience to one of our university global hubs. This gives you the opportunity for networking and exploring opportunities and expanding your networks across the regions where CWEIC members are located, while gaining an understanding of the geopolitical, legal, and the economic context. There will be opportunities within the course to enhance your skills and understanding and implementing global trade agreements, investment, and partnership. This course will be delivered online with inclusion of optional residentials in one of our numerous global hubs. The MBA Global Trade and Investment course structure consists of 6 15-credit modules and a final 30-credit MBA consultancy project. As you can see, the modules highlighted in green are the specialist modules. Global trade and investment, the political and legal context, the financial instruments in the global business environment, and the MBA consultancy project, where you will be solving a live business project within your organization or the business that you run. This course will run over a period of 2 years, with participants studying part-time and completing 1 module per semester, with the MBA consultancy project taking place in the final semester alongside the last module. Learners on this course will be exempted from the first 4 modules. So rather than taking 11 modules, you will take a total of 7 modules. Below, I show you the structure. This is the course structure of the MBA. I'll pause for a few seconds for you to have a look at it. Learners on the MBA in Global Trade and Investment will be exempted from the certificate modules, which are highlighted in red. Because you are coming in at a senior level, you would have had 7 years experience at senior managerial or leadership level, or you would have run your business for at least 7 years. These core modules, you'll be exempted. Your experience gives you that exemption. You will start off at the diploma level with innovation and entrepreneurship. And today was the taster session, giving you a glimpse of what you will be exploring and unpacking during that module. Then we go on to the leadership and change management, strategy and decision-making, global marketing. Once you complete the 4 modules, which would take you roughly 4 semesters, which is about 12 months, you move on to the master's level modules, which is your specialist modules. At this level, it's bringing about change. We're looking at global trade and investment within the political and legal context and the financial instruments. It is at this stage that the residential will take place within one of our global hubs, because we have built the knowledge at the diploma level, and then we are now putting it into action at the specialist level. The delivery schedule. It will be a mix of online, synchronous and asynchronous content using FutureLearn and Aula. supported by our specialist, our Aula platform, and our course director and associate course director and lecturer for each module. Each participant will have the opportunity to participate in a residential at one of Coventry University's global hubs. It will either be in Dubai, Brussels, Rwanda, India, or Singapore, but at this stage, it would likely be Singapore. The residentials and the local teams in the hub will draw on local and regional expertise to provide you a schedule of masterclass sessions, which ties in the key themes of the modules during the residentials. You would also have the opportunity to visit businesses during the residentials, have guest speaker sessions, and facilitated group support sessions where you share ideas and exchange new information. For learners who would be unable to travel to any of these global hubs for the optional residential, you will receive access to relevant content and materials, and where possible, you will join the sessions online. This is a sample of the delivery schedule. We start off with innovation and entrepreneurship in May, and we move on to leadership in September, and then strategy in January of 2025. We would have a 2-day synchronous delivery before you're left to go back and study online, exemplar online synchronous materials, case studies, videos, module leader advice and feedback sessions, and you would also have drop-in sessions and access to associate lecturers weekly to embed the knowledge that you have gained from looking through the learning materials. I'm sure you would ask us, who have you worked with? What is the testimonials? We've worked with the NHS, Coventry and Warwickshire Trust, Blakemore Air Ambulance, the Ministry of Justice, Department of Media and Culture, Virgin Care, Warwickshire College, Andient, the Ministry of Defence, Coventry University itself, Hertfordshire College, NetApp, and many other councils across the UK. So we do have legitimacy to deliver this course. What do we offer then? We have an international team of academics offering an international perspective. They draw on their industry experience to inform teaching and training on the programs. They draw on research. They draw on consultancy activities. We also have innovative assessments, and hence we don't have exams on the MBA. We have weekly drop-in sessions, mini MBA webinar series, which develops our learners' soft skills, and we also have networking events with senior leaders every semester. We have the optional residential and we have the biannual. So every 2 years, we have the MBA conference or residentials. Student support, 24 hours, 7 days a week, access to the library and online library resources, access to online study skills. For example, the Center for Academic Writing. We also have Sigma, the Maths and Statistics support. You have 24/7 access to our virtual learning environment, Aula. You also would have weekly feedback and advice hours. You would have access to your course directors and ASs here, access to your progress coach, health and well-being support, and would have a frequently asked questions with answers compiled and updated regularly on your Aula page, which is your social learning environment. So you then ask, what's the entry criteria? How can I get on this exciting course? And we're looking forward to having you. First key thing, the course, applicants to this course must show evidence that prospective student is a member or an employee of a strategic partner of CWEIC. You must have an undergraduate degree and have over 7 years experience of senior leadership or management experience or of running your own business. You have to provide the evidence attached. All learners who have then been accepted to take part in the Global Trade and Investment MBA course will get 60 credit exemptions based on their experience. The modules that you will be exempted from will be the business models, geopolitical, financial analysis, and organizational behavior. These are the skills that you would have gained by working at senior leadership level for over a 7-year period. What is the fees? We have negotiated a special fee for this course only. The standard fee for the MBA is actually 20,300, but for this fee, it is prorated at 13,533. However, you also get a £1,000 discount for the first 100 learners who enroll. So you actually pay £12,533 for this course. You are able to pay this in installments each semester as you take the course. Admissions. Once you have applied, we'll put the admissions link beneath. Your application will be reviewed to meet the requirements. We then send you an offer letter and also send you a payment link for your first semester payment through our Events First payment channel. Once we have received your payment, your application will be moved further for enrollment, and you'll be sent an enrollment link to enroll as a Coventry University student. You will then be also enrolled onto our virtual learning space, Aula, and your studying will be attached to a particular record, and you'll be granted full access to all the materials that you would need to complete this course. We're here to support you. We're here to give you all the advice that you need. We're here to hold your hands through this process, working alongside CWEIC. If you need further information, please do not hesitate to contact us. The application link is up on the page. We can put it in the chat, or just contact CWEIC and say, I'd like to be part of this course. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us, taking the time to engage with us. I want to thank our colleagues from CWEIC. Do have a lovely morning, and we've come to the end of our presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ina, for that very thorough overview. I am sure there are some questions from the audience to come in. But whilst we wait for those, perhaps we can. There was one more question for Professor Loycker, which might be interesting to ask. So if that's, I'll put it in the answer live section. So how can policymakers and governments create a more supportive environment for women entrepreneurs?
They need to understand the women in the areas that they're in, and not just try and do a one-size-fits-all model. That's the danger. We've seen policy initiatives supporting women entrepreneurs across the globe for many, many years. And unless they're targeted in the right way and understand the needs of the women, then they tend to put in place things that they've put in place maybe previously for men, and assume that that's what women need. And there is a degree of patronising, if I'm honest, about the way many policies are created to support women. It assumes more than it knows. And so I would say talk to the women's groups, talk to the groups within your communities, find out what they need most. Quite often it's not the thing you think they need, so ask. It could be, there's often money, the policy, lots of initiatives to get women money, and microfinance type loans are very common, aren't they? Women are very reluctant to borrow money. So find out what they need and work at a more nuanced and informed level, rather than simply assume that you know what women need, because quite often that's not what women need. So ask, and then make sure the basics are there. I was involved in a massive project in Nigeria, the UWIM project a few years ago, where only women could apply for grants. So that was a different way of doing it. So they, at the government level, created a competition which tens of thousands of women applied for, and about 600 women got funded. And there was an absolute wonderful range of not just startup, but growth initiatives. So it may be that women are already involved in businesses that they're not necessarily the owners of, but part of a family business that they want help to grow. And it's a long way around saying ask and understand the marketplace that you're dealing with.
Great, thank you very much. I think that's a very good answer, and we will, as an organisation, also take that on board. We have to listen to the people who require our help. I think there are not any questions about the MBA from the audience, but perhaps I had another question, and that was just about the jurisdictions that the MBA is about. Obviously, this is a CWEIC MBA or it's a Coventry MBA in partnership with CWEIC, but perhaps the Coventry team would like to just give an overview of the regions and how it's sort of the focus areas for this MBA.
Thank you so much, Anna. I will just talk through what it would entail. So we're hoping to launch in May 2024, so just in 2 months' time. And we'll start off with the induction. We welcome everyone in, get everyone enrolled. You get to meet your course directors, your module leaders, the course team, the School of Strategy and Leadership where the MBA sits, and get to understand how Coventry works. And then we launch right into the first module, which would be entrepreneurship and innovation. We would have 2 days of online delivery where we explore and unpack key topics that is relevant. We also touch on the assessments. After the 2 days of online delivery, we then have weekly schedules where we put in materials where the students can go through the materials on a weekly basis. And at the end of the week, they have an associate lecturer where they can pop in for a drop-in session just to unpack the key topics and clarify key things. They would also have their associate course director, Aeneas, who they can reach out to if they have any questions, any concerns around the academic life. They would have support from the library as well. They would have support from registry teams. They would have support from the administrators as well. We have the well-being support. So that support will be there all around them. Weekly, there'll be constant communications and reminders of what they need to do, and that we're here to support them. Then deadlines for the assessment come through week 6 and week 12, and submissions done. After that, they go into the second module, which would be leadership and change, how they lead themselves through change and lead the organizations through change, and the impact that that would have on the organization. Maybe their own business as well, because I can see that from the applications, we have people who own businesses and people who actually work for organizations. So the differences in that would come through how change is managed. But also the assessments are applied, they are not theoretical. So the questions are asked in a way that you can apply to your organizations, taking the theories and the models and the concepts that you have been taught within the sessions and applying it to the context that you operate in and coming up with new ways of working or a new perspective. I'm going to stop at this stage because I've talked for 2 minutes and I don't want to keep talking. And I'll pause here and I'll say, Aeneas or Professor Lockyer, if you have anything to contribute, just add on. You're on mute, Joan.
If I may just add to what you're saying, and the way that we teach at Coventry, and not the way the MBA is taught, is very respectful of the knowledge of the people in the room. We launched a new cohort recently, and we really value the contributions that we get from the learners in the room. We don't by any means assume that we've got the monopoly of knowledge. We have knowledge, of course we have knowledge, and we've got lots of very current knowledge around theories and practices, and that is refined for us in a two-way relationship with the learners that allows you to inform us of what's going on in the world, in your part of the world, what you see, what you experience every day, and that informs our thinking hugely about the way in which that dialogue happens. So it isn't a sit down, take notes and listen type learning environment. It's very much a sit down, contribute, share, and help us to help you by understanding the very real challenges, whether they're around entrepreneurship or leadership that you face. And peer-to-peer learning is really critical in all of that as well. You learn from each other, you learn so much from each other. It's a fantastic environment to be in. And MBA students are on the whole a real delight to teach and be around, because we get such richness from them as we hope we contribute to their understanding. And often what we're doing is we're appending theory to existing knowledge. We'll say, this is what you know, and this is what it's actually called. And that gives people that confidence to be able to talk knowledgeably about what they know, because now they know where it fits within the theoretical canon. And so that's, it's a lovely way of working. And I think it's very helpful for us and beneficial for the students. So come along. Come along.
Well, I think that answers all the questions and has given a fantastic overview of, well, first the issues of women empowerment in entrepreneurship and what we can do to alleviate some of these difficulties, as well as, of course, a rapid fire introduction to the MBA with a specialised pathway in global trade and investment. And I just want to say my thanks to Professor Loycker on her fantastic contributions, as well as to Dr. Maycock and Dr. Gikas on their introduction to the MBA program, and of course to our own Charlotte Bailey for her wonderful introduction to CWEIC. So thank you all very much for your time. I will be sending the recording of this webinar to the attendees, and please feel free to get in touch with us. The emails will be listed in this webinar recording, as well as of course reply with any questions to the email you receive next week. Thank you very much, everyone, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you, Anna.